Thank you, Matt. I'm intrigued by the 500.
Welcome back, by the way.
Thank
Missed
you.
last week.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I'm intrigued by the 500 days of failure. You know, diplomacy being 500 days of failure and 1 day of success.
It was a George Mitchell.
We're only 412 days on.
So this was so just so you know the full context, if you've heard this, it was George Mitchell's quote. Just real quick, it was George Mitchell's quote with respect to the Good Friday Accords.
No, I understand. I'm just saying. I wanted to ask you about your veto last week. You know, I know that my colleagues asked this question. I wasn't here, but I wanted to ask you, what is exactly the language that you would have inserted or added to agree?
Sure.
To agree on this. Could you share with us?
So I did ask to answer this question when Matt asked it to me last week and had a potential suggestion.
I appreciate your indulgence in your colleague.
I'm more than happy, but I will tell you, I went back after the briefing and looked at the exact language that we had proposed. I'm happy to share it with you because I do still, to this day, fail to understand why it is that other countries on the Council wouldn't agree to it. So one potential language would be demanding an immediate humanitarian ceasefire to include the release of all hostages. Mm-hmm. That's a proposal the United States put forward that was rejected by other members of the Council. Other would be that to demand that the parties take immediate steps to end the war, including the unconditional release of all hostages and facilitating extended humanitarian pauses so aid reaches civilians in Gaza. That also was language that other members of the Council rejected. I don't understand why. I can't speak to them, but to me, this seems like unobjectionable language that calls for both an end to the war, a ceasefire, and the release of hostages.
But 14 other members found the language to be acceptable.
Sure.
And, you know, not really.
Sure. And we disagree about the language that we ultimately opposed. Mm-hmm. We thought that language did not link the release of hostages with a ceasefire, and that's why we opposed it. But and that can, you know, others can speak to why they supported the language they did. We didn't find that to be a sufficient linkage. But to the question of our alternative language, I think the language I put forward right now makes pretty clear that we were ready to call for an immediate ceasefire. We're ready to call for an end to the war, as we have done consistently, as we have in a previous Security Council resolution that we supported. But we believe we have to be clear that includes the release of hostages.
But all diplomats and all experts, all legal experts, said that it was included. They did call for the release of the hostages immediately. It is called for in the resolution itself.
No, it did. I don't want to dispute that. It did not link it to a ceasefire, and that's something that we have said from the beginning is important to the United States.